Welcome back to TT Plays. We haven't opened the CSR from our case yet. We're 7 boxes in. We're going to crack the rest of them, keep looking for that CSR. We did get a CSR from an event pack, so hey, we're stoked. We haven't found the one in the case yet. We know there's one in there. You can kind of see Franklin derping around in the back. It's late. He should be sleeping. He's out begging for food. But today we're going to be talking about wind cards that I'm really excited about coming out of Fractured Crown. First up is Scatter Essence. And it says destroy target Fantasia, and it also has floating memory. So 2 cost, and we're basically trading a resource for a resource, because Fantasia is a fancy way of saying fractal. I don't know why they've chosen this differentiator. So we're blowing up a mana rock. In exchange, we're putting a floating memory down in our graveyard. So that seems like great value. Comes at a 2 cost. I think if we are worried about those kind of longer, grindier games, possibly from Wind, because I think that Wind and Water are the 2 decks that are really going to kind of grind that thing out there, Water in particular, I think it's a great card. So if this card was printed in Dawn of Ashes, none of us would play it because there weren't fractals. But now, with the oncoming of fractals, I'm pretty excited about Scatter Essence as a counter card, basically for Fractured Crown itself. The Green Slime. Adorable. Absolutely adorable. All right, Pride 3, we don't care. On enter, put 2 buff counters on Green Slime. On leave, put the buff counters you were on Green Slime on target ally you control. So there are all sorts of like bouncing, extra buffing, weird shenanigans you can do to like move a bunch of slime counters around. You're basically playing like Spike Feeder from Magic the Gathering. But at its core, it's a 3 for a 2/3 that gives someone else buff counters when it leaves. So it's just a really efficient creature. If you're going to play Tamer, there's not a lot of depth to it unless we're getting into like the silly like Eldrazi Displacer bouncing of the Green Slime. But at its core, its floor is really high. And I think its ceiling is like a really busted combo piece that's probably cuter than good in some weird Rube Goldberg engine. But again, very excited about the Green Slime. Ventus, Staff of Zephyrs. I probably pronounced at least 2 of those words wrong. I think I nailed staff and of. So it's a regalia item. It's a mage item. And again, I think that Wind and Water are the decks that are going to be able to kind of draw out this longer game. They both have different ways of kind of approaching it. And I think this is one of those cards that's really going to shine a longer game. So when you activate a Wind element mage spell, you can put a refinement counter on it. You can remove a refinement counter to add an enlighten counter. So for every, let's say, 3 Wind cards you cast, you can say you can draw 1 card. Not a great rate, not a horrible rate. You can also remove 3 refinement counters to suppress target ally. That's really interesting if we're playing a control game. So I just like this as just like tertiary value. It's a 0 cost. You're just going to have it out there. You can get it out there early. Just recur this value from these Wind mage spells. And again, I think it's just in a long game, any of these kind of recurring value things we can get, like the cloak that we talked about for Water, I think are going to have value for these long games. So I'm really high on Ventus. The boots. I did this video on a basically like Xander red deck wins, Tristan red deck wins, and the boots are a whole nother way to play Tristan or other things, right? But it basically gives you a prep counter, right? At the beginning of your end phase, if your champion's awake, put a prep counter on them. And prep counters are easier to come by now than they were, but incredibly powerful, right? They're like the gas behind an assassin deck. Tristan, if she's awake, she's going to get you 1. The boots are going to get you 1. That's 2 prep counters a turn. That's pretty incredible. You can also banish them to draw a card. You can only do this if you have 5 or more prep counters. I guess this is the turn you're going for the win. You can draw an extra card to kind of fuel your engine there. Again, cost 0. Getting prep counters for just being awake, to me, just seems extremely valuable. I'm really, really excited about the boots. I think they're, again, a really high floor item there for these assassin decks that aren't trying to just burn you down right away, that maybe want to take a few turns, just get really high value out of utilization of prep counters on all of the different cards that they're activating. All right, Spirit of Serene Wind. I think all the spirits are really good. The reason I list one here is I think that Wind and Water are the 2 that are going to want to play this longer game, as I kind of talked before where I talked about Ventus. And I think the Recover 6 there is really valuable. Now, only playing a card down is big. We do have Glimpse to try to fix that, so theoretically the 6 that we have are maybe better than the 7 that you blind draw. But again, I just think the Recover is pretty valuable there. So for the long game, to draw it out, basically 6 additional hit points, I really like the Serene Wind. I think it'll play nicely, and I think we'll see a lot more wind than we will of the other elements. Ready to be wrong about that? That's just my gut feeling. All right, so these last 3 cards are the cards I'm most excited about, and then I have kind of a tossing card at the end there. So we have Korhazi Outlook. On enter, put a prep counter on your champion. We already talked about how much I love prep counters. Remove a prep counter from your champion. Opponents can't activate cards this turn. Glimpse 1. Activate the ability only during your turn. This is amazing. We can do this in our Recollect phase before we draw. It's really good, right? Just stopping your opponent from doing things in your turn. Really powerful. We obviously want to do that as soon as possible. So again, I'd recommend doing this in Recollect. So if we're playing this long game, we pair this with the boots. I think there's an incredible amount of value here. Effigy of Gaia. Again, I'm not a Tamer player. Someday I hope to be a Tamer player. That day is not today. But this is a 0-cost Regalia that your champion gets +1 level as long as you control an ally or a beast. That could be the whole card, and it would be really good, right? But it has this incredible second ability. When an opponent activates a card with Cleave, animal and beast you control get 2 butt until the end of the turn. That's amazing. It basically just like negates 2 damage off this Cleave attack that's coming in. It's really, really good. Again, I think this would be playable if it was only that top line. Your champion gets +1 level as long as you control an ally or beast, right? Helps us negate pride. Amazing. And on top of that, our board is more survivable. We're more resilient to those obnoxious Cleave things that wipe our board out. I think this is really, really good. I love the Effigy of Gaia. Also, gorgeous card, and I opened 2 foils. 2 foil super rares. That's pretty cool. All right, the last card that I think is really good is Innervate Agility. Now, there's a few reasons that I view this one higher than the other ones. First of all, it's fast, and it only costs 2. I think that's a huge pro for it. Additional cost, you de-level your champion and you recover 5. All right, that's fine. De-leveling, we've talked about this before for water. De-leveling, bad most of the time. Recovering 5, hey, that's really good. That's 5 hit points. Hopefully you don't die from the de-level. But it does say, units you control gain your choice of stealth or spell shroud until the end of the turn. So I do want to talk about this a little bit because there's some confusion here about the stealth and spell shroud timing. So if we do this in response to an attack targeting us or another unit and we grant them stealth, it will fizzle the attack. That's pretty clearly laid out. I'll put the rules text up here on the screen as well. If we do this in response to a spell targeting unit with spell shroud, it's the exact same thing. It fizzles the spell. So this can be used retroactively, and then it will persist and protect your stuff for the remainder of the turn. It can be used proactively when you see your opponent start to go off or start setting a combo here, and they start setting up for a really big turn. So again, I really value this low cost. There's quite a few obnoxious win cards you can hold up in your hand there. Your opponent's not really going to be sure what you have. And again, giving yourself stealth or spell shroud, whichever one you need at that exact moment for 2, is really, really powerful in my mind. Now, there are some spells that don't target, where you're doing like 2 or 3 damage to everything. Spell Shroud's not going to help you there, right? It has to be something that targets for Spell Shroud to be relevant. But Spell Shroud or Stealth can basically negate an attack or a spell coming into either one of those. This only costing 2, to me, is really, really good. So that wraps up the wind cards. Again, I'm most excited about the Outlook, the Effigy of Gaia, and the Innervate. I think all of those are amazing cards. The Scatter Essence, great for stopping fractals. Green Slime, I think has a really high floor. Ventus and Boots, I think are just really solid Regalia items that are just going to get you long-term value in this wind game plan to kind of draw the game out as long as possible. So let me know your favorite wind cards coming out of Fractured Crown. Let me know how your pack openings have gone. Have you opened a CSR? What CSR are you hunting for? Have you seen this legendary Merlin 3 CSR? I haven't seen any yet. It seems like I didn't realize there were like ranked rarities of the CSR, but it definitely looks like that one's harder to find. So I do want to thank you for watching this Grand Archive video on TT Plays. And until next time, everyone, cheers and happy gaming.